All right, we should be live now, you guys.
Cool,
Hello,
cool.
hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking Swish. I am Steven Dykman, and I am accompanied here by team captain of sorts, Dewey Vu, and podcast partner. Unfortunately, Larry Fields cannot join us this evening. He got stuck doing some work-related stuff, but Dewey and I are going to carry on the torch and keep it rolling tonight for all of you. So, with that being said, Dewey, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. I just got to do a lot of traveling, lots of fun. Got to make it out to Chicago with you guys and made it back. We'll talk more about our weekend in particular, but we want to see how things are going to be going with Dan here, who's our special
Yes.
guest tonight. Dan, thank you so
Hey
much.
guys, howdy. Thanks for having me on.
So let's jump right into the interview, honestly. We're going to be talking a lot about NRG weekend, how everything played out.
Yep.
And so, Steven, I'll pass it back to you and get things going.
Cool. So, Dan, obviously the last NRG event went pretty well for you. You finished in the finals. And what deck did you play in the last NRG
Uh,
event?
I've been playing the Demir Mill deck, which I actually haven't been on for that long. I've probably only been playing it for like 2 months now. We actually gave me the idea when he wrote an article about it, and I kind of figured it would be. I don't know. I kind of identified it as maybe kind of being my style. Like I don't know. This is kind of a weird comparison, but I sort of thought it was sort of like the Valcut decks, in that it attacks the opponent from a different angle
Sure.
than just like attacking with creatures.
So
I
you
I
are
wanted to try it
ready.
out.
You are ready to declare that you are forever going to be known as Mill Guy. You're
Yeah,
Mill Guy.
maybe I've been having a lot of success with the deck. I don't know. I don't know if people aren't ready or they don't know how to play against it, or if
Yeah.
I actually do a good job with it, or probably just a combination of all of those, getting a little
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah. All those things. I
It's
mean,
been really fun.
Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a really good card in a format where Luris is like just rampant, right? I mean, Luris is almost at
Yeah.
like every single table, every round. It's definitely the most popular companion, I would say, and I would also say that it's probably the most broken. And I don't think most people would argue otherwise. Dan is a little quiet. Can I adjust his volume? Does Dan have to? Who has to adjust that? Is that me?
Let's see, it's capturing your audio input, but it
Oh,
might not be.
so maybe my desktop audio. If I increase my desktop audio, would that help?
That should help, yes.
Okay,
Or you,
let's see if that helps. Wait, it's not even. Is it even picking up my desktop audio? It's not even picking up my desktop audio. Why is that?
well, it's because we're
Oh, there,
capturing
there
your.
we go. There we go. You just had to say something. I'm done. I'm done.
Oh,
Okay. How is it now, you guys? I've increased the desktop audio.
Testing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It sound
the
it
other
sound okay, Zach?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me talking about Demir Mill or not?
the other thing you could do, Dan, is that you can go into your Discord,
Still
go to voice in the video, and see if your voice setting has been turned up to the level that you want it to be at.
okay.
Yeah, this is
I've
probably my fault
increased.
because I don't really do this very
Alright,
much, but
it seems like it's fine, just a little quiet. So
It's fine. Okay. Great.
user,
Okay.
user
So
settings.
Dan has declared that he is becoming Mill Guy. And so Dan gets a second place finish with Mill in the last tournament. And obviously this tournament was a little different than the one last time, right? Because I think last time, was it just Modern, or was it Legacy Sunday and Modern Saturday? I forget.
The latter. It was modern and then
It
legacy.
was
So
Modern and then Legacy. Okay.
right.
So for this tournament, there was a team event, and that was the event Saturday. So let's kind of go over the team event first. So you obviously had really, really good success in Modern at the last NRG, getting second place. And then how did you do in Legacy?
So I beat all the white decks with my Omnitel deck, and then died to all the Delver decks. So I ended 5-4 playing Legacy. I don't know much about Legacy, so I
Sure.
thought that the Omnitel deck would be fun and interesting. Like it's pretty one-sided. Obviously it's a combo deck.
Right.
So I definitely don't want to show up as the 10th best Delver player in the room.
Yeah, definitely.
So I thought that, and kind of similar things to be said about the white deck, like the Stoneforge deck. But the Omnitel deck, it seemed combo. It actually just was super. It sounded fun to cast Emerald Gold the Anstorm and get to take an extra turn. So I did that, and that deck is pretty good against all the white decks and pretty bad against Ragavan.
Makes sense. So did you struggled with the Ragavan decks then? I'm assuming.
Right. Yeah. So I lost to. I believe I lost to Delver 3 times.
Okay.
Beat the white deck 3 times, and I lost to Burn, and then I picked up some other wins.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
That
Okay.
makes sense. That's like a good way to approach Legacy when you don't really know the format or aren't versed in it, is to pick just the combo deck, focus on what you have.
Yeah, just be the broken deck, and yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then going into the team event structure, for those that don't know, was limited, modern, and legacy. So it was interesting, a very different team structure than normal. Dan, what did you decide to play in the team event, or what did your team decide to have you play, and why?
So I played the limited seat, which
Yes.
I'm starting to second guess that.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, at least amongst our play group, modern players are kind of a dime a dozen. Sort of the same with legacy. It's like a lot of people have legacy decks, and not a ton of people are really versed in limited. But I've been playing arena a lot, and I like to do drafts, and
Sure.
I probably do a draft, I don't know, every other day to every 3 days. So I'm like, yeah, maybe this will make sense, and I can just grind the format in the 2 weeks prior to the tournament and learn all the cards and maybe get good at it. So that was and that preparation actually sounded interesting to me. So that's why I went for that seat. In retrospect, I think that the people who were there were they were limited experts. I feel like, whereas I was just like a limited amateur. I don't know. They seemed to know something that I didn't. I felt like, because I had what I would consider an excellent pool and just wasn't getting there. So I don't know. Maybe it breaks that way sometimes. But would hate to just chalk it up to all bad luck. I feel like that's one of my pet peeves, is when you lose and it's just, oh man, it was just all bad luck.
Right.
Well, no, maybe you're actually not doing something right, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for me to put my finger on what that was, but yeah, I feel like a 90 percentile pool should have done better than 1 in 3 or whatever I went in my games. So
yeah,
and Steven,
yeah, go ahead, man. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, you got to see my pool. I had the Averbrook, which is potentially the best card in the set.
Yeah.
Maybe it's edged out, and I had the Kraken that like bounces spells and
Yeah.
permanents, and
You had some. So your pool was really interesting, right? Because you had two very strong rares. Obviously, you had, like you said, you had the Averbrook Caretaker, I think is the name of the card, and I believe Zach Allen was talking with me between one of the rounds about like rankings for sealed mythics and rares and stuff. And I think Averbrook was like the third or fourth best mythic in the set percentage-wise. Like when you play the card, you win X percentage of games. I don't know how they compile this data, where they're getting the data from, but
it's all from 17 lands. I think I actually know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay, sure.
Arena 17 lands compiles all the data from all the people who have the app, and it records every game you play.
I see.
And it gives you data on like
okay,
what your win percentage when it's in your deck, win percentage when it's drawn.
Yes,
kind of
yep,
thing.
that was exactly what we were looking at. And by the numbers there, funny enough, our team actually had the quote-unquote best mythic in sealed, which I guess is Cemetery Desecrator. I still don't know if I actually buy that is the best mythic in sealed, but whatever. That's what that site said percentage-wise. So it's hard to argue with numbers. But either way, yes, you had an insane mythic in Averbrook, and then you also had a really good rare in the horror. Now, what was interesting about your pool, though, is supposedly green is the worst color in the format in sealed, is what I've been told. And then blue green even you were saying this, blue-green is like the literal worst archetype. Like, that is not where you want to be in draft or sealed. So you had some good rares, but it's arguable if your pool was a 90th percentile or not, because you're playing the worst color combination by the numbers, supposedly. So even though you had some good rares, do the rares actually make up for playing the worst color combination? And the problem is, too, both of those rares are super expensive. They don't actually impact the game until like turn 6 or 7. So if you run into like some good aggressive decks, you might never even see your rares because you're just going to get run over. And the big problem with blue in this format is blue has like no removal at all. Fear of Death is terrible. It's not even, I wouldn't even consider it a removal spell. It's awful. It's just a very, very bad card. You're not happy to play that card like ever. It's definitely worse than Locked in the Cemetery was in the last format, and that was like close to a removal spell. That card still wasn't amazing, but it was certainly better than Fear of Death, not close. So I don't think, if I were to, I would not put your pool in the 70th percentile. It might have been a little above 70th just because of your rares, but like being in blue-green is pretty awkward. Like, black is by far the best color in the format, I think, and I think it's pretty hard to argue with that.
That's a good point.
It has just two incredible removal spells. Like, it's arguable that Bleed Dry is better than Hero's Downfall because of the Exile clause. It's very close. Downfall being 1 mana cheaper is obviously good for efficiency, and Downfall being able to hit walkers can matter, but your opponent has to have a walker in their deck, which isn't that likely, obviously. So it's very debatable whether Bleed Dry or Downfall is better. If I had to pick between them, I think I would pick Downfall, but it's very, very close. But anyway.
I would probably pick Bleed myself.
Yeah.
I think that Bleed is better. I don't know. There's so many rares you need to kill that like come back. The Edgar card.
And like we talked about, Cemetery Desecrator is one of the best, supposedly like the best mythic or whatever, and that card has a ETB and a death trigger, and it's insane if you buy it back. Like, that's why the card is like the best, supposedly, is just the ways to recur it make it such an annoying card to deal with, just so much value.
I was once playing a game of Limited with where my opponent, where I had the Edgar, and my opponent had Hero's Downfall, and I was like, man, I'm fine as long as like they don't have the Bleed Dry, right?
Yeah.
Because then, but they actually built their own Bleed Dry because they were playing the I forget the name of it. It's like the Soul Guide Lantern variant that exiles the graveyard. So they Hero's Downfall my card, and then exiled it with the Soul Guide Lantern variant with the trigger on the stack. So they had to build their own Bleed Dry with Hero's Downfall. So that's kind of why I think like situations like that I think gives Bleed Dry the edge.
Yeah, for sure. And like I was saying, like there will be situations where your opponent just has a Sorin or whatever, but I think those situations, like they're much less likely that you would need Downfall over the Bleed Dry. So I definitely hear your argument there. Okay, so we both agree your pool was definitely solid, but blue-green's not necessarily where you want to be. How did the tournament end up going for you guys? Kind of give us a recap of the team event.
So in round one, we stomped. So I was with a team with Merrick and Brandon, and they were playing. So we had for modern we had the Jun deck with the Ragavans, and
sure.
Then Brandon Darnell was playing Doomsday, which is just his favorite deck, and he's telling me that it's passable against Delver and kills everything else, was sort of his pitch to me.
Okay.
That's very true. It's considered the best combo deck right now, and it does take on all the decks that are trying to prey on Delver, but it loses to Delver. So.
Yeah. And apparently to main deck Endurance too.
And to main deck Endurance as we found out later. But so we started out feeling like super hot. Like we had I stomped my limited opponent with my rares, and then we actually had Darnell beat Delver with the Doomsday,
Nice.
and then Merrick didn't have to finish. So we're like,
Nice.
wow, we won the matchup that's tough, and like the pool is just as good as I thought it was. And then we proceeded to lose 4 in a row, and
Yikes.
get pretty humbled. So like I
Yeah.
don't know, it was just it was a tough tournament. I feel bad for Merrick the most because I feel like his game like just never mattered.
Sure.
Either Brandon, because like he just never finished,
Okay.
which is like which was it's part of the downfall of team events in my
Yeah.
opinion is like it's just super hard when your game doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Frustrating for sure.
So yeah, so Brandon ran into more Delver and lost to lands with main deck endurance, and
Yep.
that
The
was
Lands deck
in
that
my
top
limited
8'd
games.
for the viewers listening, by the way, that team did top 8 the event. Apparently, I mean the Lands player was Adam Washburn Moses actually, and he's a pretty strong player. And obviously, I mean top 8 in an event, their team did very well, very respectable finish. But he was telling me the deck was like insane against Delver. He was like 6-0 or something against Delver. So I even had like half of mine to play that deck. But the problem is I don't know anybody with Tabernacle, and I don't really know anybody who would let somebody borrow a Tabernacle either. That's a pretty expensive card.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's probably going to deter me from playing that at the next event just because of stuff like that. But so okay, so you said Merrick's match didn't matter. Did that mean that obviously means you and Darnell were just both getting bodied every round pretty much after round one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was wild. I don't know. I was mulliganing a lot. I would not draw my lands. The issue you actually identified earlier, like my rares cost 6 and 7, and I was just getting stuck on 4, and then I was playing all the kind of crappy blue and green cards that were in the middle, right? Like,
Yeah.
because I actually played the Fear of Death in my deck because I was like, well, this card it takes the aggressor off the board and lets me get to the bomb, right?
Yeah.
And everything I'd read about the format said that you just had to play your bombs. It didn't like
Yeah.
you just
You
had
do.
to play
I mean,
them
you
because,
absolutely do. The bombs in this format are incredible. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I got beat one. So in round 2, I got beat by Aim Dry, or not Aim Dry. Aim for the Head, the Mind Rot Exiles. So I couldn't cast my Averbrook that game because of that card. In later rounds, I lost to an opponent who had the Demon, the one that copies.
Yep.
I had to keep a pretty risky hand in that game, which had like 2 islands and just needed to draw like 1 forest and just didn't draw a forest. So that's Magic sort of. I know that I made a mistake in my deck construction, and this is where I would say like I'm a limited amateur. I just played 17 lands. This deck was at least 18, if not more.
Okay.
That's sort of results-based thinking, but like looking back, like all I wanted to do was all my deck wanted to do was
hit
6
lands
and 7. So
and
like I don't know if it would have been wrong to play 19.
Okay, 19's aggressive, but you also had like 2 scattered thoughts. So like or 3, you had like multiple like really solid blue card draw spells, and so even like that lets you kind of play the extra land even more. It would have been nice if you had Thirst for Discovery. That's the card you really want if you're playing an extra land. You'd get really paid off there because you just pitch the extra one. But you're still able. You can hit those land drops, and then you can like kind of siphon through your deck and choose double spell if you're flooding or whatever, or keep hitting the land drops. That card seemed very good in your deck for sure. But so that's good. You recognize that was potentially a mistake in the deck construction. We were kind of going over your pool a little bit when the event was over and just kind of talking about how it maybe could have been built differently and stuff. And I feel like you had to be blue-green. I don't think your pool yielded anything else. You didn't have any real ways to splash at all. You had no wilds. You had none of the artifact that generated colors. And did you even have a Weaver? Did you have 1 Weaver in your deck?
No, I actually. Let's backtrack a little bit. I actually did splash the black rare. That's a 1/4. And I splashed,
okay.
I splashed the 1/4 that lets all your creatures deal damage equal to their toughness, just on a basis of playables.
Okay.
Because I did actually have the 3 mana rock that filters for any
Okay.
color.
Okay. You did have that.
And
All right. I forgot that.
I had the 2-drop guy that adds any color, and I had the 3-drop guy that adds any
Okay.
color.
So you did have some okay fixing.
Yeah. So the 2-drop one is especially good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Taxidermist is crazy. Taxidermist is a great card. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. That's another reason to not be 19 lands. There's like no way you'd want to be that high when you have that many cards that produce mana. There's like some argument that you still shouldn't have even been 18 because I think you had 3 cards that produce mana, so literally half your deck is mana production. It's very interesting. I don't know exactly what the right call is, but
You say that the color combination for the primary deck's correct. Was there an argument for building a separate deck depending on the matchup for 2 and 3? Like, was the pool strong enough to do that, or was it just so weak that it didn't matter?
I don't remember that. We would have to maybe we should sit down and reanalyze the pool at some point if you still have the cards, but
I think we do, but they're not with me.
Sure.
My opinion was that the vampire deck wasn't really there. The red cards were not deep. It was like I had one Flame Blast Bolt and I had one Bleed Dry, and then after that the quality just was. I just wasn't there. There on playables.
Sure.
The white cards I had one minister. I think I had 2 ministers actually.
Okay.
And then I had a lot of gold cards which were sort of awkward.
Yeah.
Taking away from the depth of colors. So I didn't, and also like you didn't have time to really think about these things. Like maybe I could have thought about them in between rounds, but like thank goodness our build was easy. My round one opponent came in with a game loss because he spent 32 minutes building his pool or something.
Wow.
And like we pretty much spent all the time. I feel like we spent all the time on our deck, and our pool was immediately identified as blue-green, and then we like decided to splash the black cards at the end. But overall, like I think it was on the easier side. Sure, although I did say I made a mistake with the land count, but maybe that's questionable. I'm not sure. But yeah, no, our round one opponent had a game loss, which didn't help him.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty insane, especially in a team event when you even get help. Like you have help there to help you write your things down or build your pool or separate things or whatever. That's pretty brutal. That's pretty insane, honestly.
I didn't actually know that you had how you were supposed to record.
Yeah.
What your deck was until like 2 minutes to go.
Oh no.
Like, oh yeah, you write in the 1 by the card, and so I was just sitting there drawing like sample hands, thinking about like what I was gonna do, and then I'm like, oh wait, you have to. The team deck has told us we had to fill that out, and I'm like, oh cool. So we got there. No game loss for me. But yeah, no, it was the limited was a humbling experience, and I mean it's good to keep a level head and know that sometimes you get magicked, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't
For
always
sure.
go your way.
For sure. I mean, it ultimately is a game of variance. You're not going to win every game you play. I mean, no player has ever won every game they played. So, okay. So, team event sucked for you in a nutshell. Not a good time. Do you wish that you would have played Modern and someone else would have played Limited, just with how well you've been doing in Modern lately, or does that not really cross your mind?
Well, it would have worked out because everyone was on Yorian 4-color something like which is part of why I think the Modern seat, like I alluded to earlier, mattered the least. But
sure.
He didn't get to finish many of his matches, but Merrick didn't seem like he was confident that he would have been winning them either, because the 4-color Omnath with all the pitch elementals deck is pretty tough, and it's pretty tough for Mill too because they like obviously the 80 cards is hard, but also just the high CMC of their deck. Yeah, Tasha's a pretty bad card, and like Tasha's is the best card in your deck by a pretty wide margin. So I wish I would have played would it have been better? I don't think I could have. I probably couldn't have played that with that specific team because none of them were interested in Limited.
Sure.
But I do prefer playing Modern because I actually think I have a higher just degree of proficiency with it, right? Because I've been playing it for longer.
That makes sense.
But yeah,
that makes sense. Okay. All right. So team event goes badly. So what are you planning to do on the next day in Modern? What's your thought process? What deck are you going to go with? Stuff like that.
Yeah, so I have been just on the mill deck, and so I don't really like jumping. Like maybe this is a bit of an amateur move, but I really prefer to like just play one deck and stick with it for a month or two at least, rather than jumping back and forth between decks because like I said, I really I would rather be the best player in the room on a tier 1.5 deck than like the 10th best player on whatever the hot deck of the week is. And so
Sure.
and I didn't really have any reason to believe that Mill wouldn't be good
Yeah.
because it served me well a month before. Like I don't really think that one Mill player in second place is going to change people's opinions and
No.
make sure all the control decks have Emrakul now all of a sudden and are playing 80. Like I didn't really think that like the thought crossed my mind, but I didn't really think that it would be a problem. And if I got lucky with the pairings and played against all Lurrus all day, which is what happened by the way, then
Yeah.
the deck would be well positioned. So I
Yep.
played against tons of Lurrus, and
Yep.
Lurrus is just like a great matchup because of how good Tasha's will be. It indicates that your needle pushes will be good, and yeah, it's just and Mill is also very good against the Rhinos deck, which
Yep. You got
I
pair
got to
against
play
as well.
twice.
Yep.
So I dodged all the Yorion decks and I
Okay.
dodged the Elementals deck, which
Okay.
is not quite as bad as the Yorion decks, but
Okay.
How do you think the deck fares against the blue-red Murktide pile?
oh, so that I also dodged that deck.
Okay.
That one is I would say that's a maybe as we would probably agree, it's one of the worst matchups, but I've been
No, I
winning it randomly because
I think that matchup is one of the worst matchups for Mel, and it's honestly the reason I got off the deck. Because I got so
yeah.
annoyed with getting wrecked by the Yorion piles because of how high their CMC was to make Natasha's bad, and then playing against Murktide after Murktide at SCG. I played against four.
Yeah.
I'm done. I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that would definitely. What happened to you made me feel bad because I had my good result and then I felt like I influenced you to play the deck and then you just got
I was,
stomped, which is
don't worry. I was on. I was happy to make the decision, but
Yeah, man, that's so it sounds like even from both of your guys' perspectives, you've played the deck. It's definitely sounding to me like it's a very matchup dependent deck. You really want to dodge some stuff with this one. It's not like a Jund style deck or whatever where you're like 55-45 or 45-55 in a lot of matchups. You have very specific you want to hit the Lurrus decks and you want to dodge the Yorion decks.
and the Amulet.
And you want to hit Amulet. That makes sense. Yes.
That's true. Which I thought that I was encouraged going into the weekend that Amulet might be more popular. I ended up playing against it, but like the new Cultivator Colossus coming out made me think that maybe a bunch of people would opt for the Amulet deck for the weekend, and I thought that Mill would be pretty good against it. I will say about Murktide, I do think how you play against them has to be kind of specific. You can't just like run out your crab and just start milling them right off the bat. I think you kind of need to flurry your mill spells and hope to surgical the Murktide.
That makes sense.
Because that's how like as soon as you surgical Murktide, you actually like it flips high like
Yeah,
in
your
favor.
percentage to be able to win the game skyrockets, I'm sure, because you can push every threat in their deck at that point.
You can push every threat, and then your Tasha quality goes up significantly.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah, at that point they're
So-
basically a Lurrus deck. They pretty much are a Lurrus deck at that point. I mean, all they have are Archmage's charms that are more than 2, right?
Yep.
The deck's all 0s and 1s and a few 2s and a few 3s.
Once in a while, the sideboard might have a couple 3 and 4 drops on top of that, but not money. So
Okay.
So yeah, so I won that matchup the previous NRG in round 1, and I think my opponent was pretty strong. He just I don't know, I just got there with the surgical plan twice.
Yep.
Like you have to play to it, and when I don't see a companion, I kind of like to assume that they might be on it, and I like prioritize surgical a little higher in my opener.
Sure.
Which I don't know if that's correct or not, but like they're not on Lurrus and they're not on Yorion.
It makes
Like,
sense.
Like if you care about the online data, like it's like apparently Murktide is 10%, so like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's the most likely It seems pretty likely. So
Yeah, not only that, but like if you're not a Luris deck, you're probably doing something broken. That's what I always assume. No Luris, okay, it's either Tron, I mean, Blue-Red Murktide's not really a broken deck, but I'm assuming Cascade, Tron. I usually assume the broken stuff just in a vacuum over the Blue-Red deck because that's a higher percentage as a whole if you like combine all of those different archetypes.
And Surgical's still very good there.
Yes, exactly. So
So
Surgical's just very good against no reveal companion. Which makes a lot of sense. You're either going to be able to hit like Crashing Footfalls type stuff. You're going to be able to hit a Tron land. Who knows? But you can do all sorts of cool stuff. Very cool, man. So you decide that you're going to play Mill. How does the event play out for you? Who do you play against in round 1?
I do have
Catalog.
my opponents up. Yeah,
we know. Well, I know who you played against in round 1.
Oh, you have it. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was me. Yeah, it was because it was me. Yes.
You were leading me into that, and
it's good, man.
I got
it's
all
good.
Focused on how I pulled up all my matchups.
No, I hear you, dude.
I know. I played against Steven here, who was on Luris, and which I was happy to see. Not happy to see even necessarily, but happy to see Luris. And you got pretty unlucky that match. I think you kept on.
Yeah, dude, it was my God, man. We'll talk more about my day when we're done giving you the interview. But some of the variant stuff, like I don't usually like complain very much about variants. Like I'm good at identifying mistakes I make and things like that. But my iterations were just, some of them were just so vomit-inducingly bad. It was just unbelievable. And yeah, it started in our match. Just the iteration in game 1 when I had 5 lands and I'm playing a 19 land deck and I've already fetched 4 times. There are literal only 10 lands left in my deck, and I iteration with 3 mana open and just hit like 2 lands in a frickin' like unholy heat or something. It's like, come on, man. Like, this is not at all what I wanted. Did I ever even play a threat other than the Ragavan on turn 1 in game 1? I don't think I did. I don't think I ever cast one more threat. Yeah, I played a Ragavan on turn 1 and never drew another threat in the entire game. And I iterationed like 2 or 3 times.
What got me is you would lead on your land.
Yeah, because I didn't want to. I wanted to fetch. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to fetch.
You wanted 2 spells, and then you would exile land anyways.
Yeah,
and I think that happened twice.
It did. It did.
Still exiled another land.
It did. It definitely did. That did indeed happen twice. It was absolutely unbelievable, and my iterations multiple times on the day kept being like that. It was insane. And then in game 2. We had a completely different game. You get me in game 1 because I just like never draw a threat, and then I was in a position where I literally could not win the game if you played correctly, so I just had to hope you'd make a mistake and go for the Crypt Incursion rather than field me off my mana so I could still have Drown Up. But I had to put Lurrus in my hand. I had to get a threat or you're just going to mill me anyway. You're going to mill me out. So I just had to hope you'd screw up, and you didn't screw up. And then I assumed you wouldn't screw up because you got second at the last event with Mills, so I figured you probably knew what was up, and you did. But I just had to hope you didn't. And then game 2, it's like a completely opposite game. I keep a land light hand. I put you on the play because I wanted to be up resources and have you down resources. And I know the matchup's kind of rough for me anyway, so I'd rather just have an extra card. I think that's helpful. And I went down. I can't remember if I cut all. I cut some number of Ragavans. I think I cut like 1 or because I wasn't interested in that card that much, especially being on the draw. And I can't hit lands to save my life. You field me and take out one of my duels, and I have to get a basic. It's a basic mountain, and my other land I think was Watery Grave. And then I cast an iteration, and it's just three spells, and it's just incredibly awkward. I have a treasure from a Ragavan up, so I can like still spell pierce you, but I hit like Inquisition and then something else that I had to put in my hand. I can't remember if it was another iteration or another drown or what. But I iteration and I miss land, which is just horrible for me. Because then I like had to blow that treasure on a hand hate spell because I just had to get the 2-for-1 off it. And I just kind of had to hope I would fade a land or whatever for that end of the story that I needed to try and spell pierce later. And I did end up getting the end of the story with Spell Pierce. I just like never draw another land again.
Yeah.
The entire game, just always stuck on 2 mana for the rest of the game, and I couldn't double spell ever because my one land is a mountain. I could have obviously had like Darcy or something, but I didn't draw Darcy. My threat was naturally Death Shadow, so I couldn't hold up Spell Pierce and Shadow. It was just a disaster. The matchup is definitely rough, but my deck did not do me any favors, and you obviously played well too. So you beat me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I ran right into your Spell Pierce. I remember that
Yeah.
distinctly. I thought the game. I was like, oh, I'm ending the game right here. Like, sucks. Like your bad luck kind of stinks, but this 4 cards gonna bury him, and then like, bam, Spell Pierce.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you probably should have read that I had some way to interact with that card, because there's not a chance on this earth that I would have left that card in your hand if I couldn't counter it, right? There's not a chance that I don't either have Dispute, Spell Pierce, or Drown. You could have maybe assumed that I had Drown, and you screwed me off my mana and I couldn't cast it, so I could buy that. But yeah, there's not a chance in this world that the man who put you on the play in game 2 would have left you with a draw 4. I promise you that is not what I'm trying to do when I put my opponent on the play with a discard spell deck, is let them resolve draw 4s.
I don't know why I didn't even consider it. I just didn't consider it. It was like, I think it was a point where I made a mistake. I was just like too far ahead.
Yeah, you were
kind of.
Yeah, you were definitely
like so sure the game was ending.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, things were falling apart for me quickly.
I don't know.
Yeah. Either way, I countered it, and then you like drew a Tasha's like 2 turns later and killed me with that. So, it didn't end up mattering at all.
It absorbed a removal spell.
Exactly. It just.
I don't know what was gonna hold it. I'm not sure if I don't remember enough specifics to see if I could have played differently. But
yeah, I mean, it ended up not mattering at all. So you beat me. Talk about how the rest of your day goes. Funny enough, you were literally Team Swish killer on this day.
I know.
You were wiping us out, dude.
I played against you guys all in Grand Rapids, and except for Dwee, of course.
Yep.
I didn't get to play against him, even though we could have, because we had the same record all day.
Yeah.
So I somehow managed to dodge Dwee, but not everyone else. So my day went Steven Dykman in round 1, and then Kyle Montgomery on
another
Swish
player, for those that don't know.
Yeah, and then I had Jimmy Go, I think, who was on 4-color like what is it? It's the Indomitable Creativity deck.
Oh sure, yeah. The Primeval Titan version or the Emissary?
No, he had main deck Emrakul.
Okay,
main
that
deck
version.
Emrakul, which is a problem, along with the Angel.
Yeah.
So that's a match. I had a ton of interesting matches. Okay, so I'll go over all of these and see which ones you want to talk about. I don't know how much time we have, but so there was that deck, and then round 4 was Will Kruger on Orzhov Hammer.
Yep.
And that match was also interesting. I watched the game 3 like 2 or 3 times through just because it was so interesting to me, and I wanted to see if I had made a mistake or had a way to win that game.
Do you think you had a way to win that game?
So. I think, looking back at what I kept as an opener, I'm kind of wondering what I was thinking.
Okay.
But I milled. So just for a little recap, I ended up Will up. He sideboarded up to 62 cards.
Yep, classic Reed Duke strategy. Very Reed Duke-esque plan against Mill.
Yeah, really. I ended up milling him to 1 card, and he drew his final card and then killed me with the double hammer in his hand.
Man,
I kept. So that game was wild because I watched the footage and I couldn't Sometimes people say I play slow, and I do wish I had played faster there because I literally looked through his. I couldn't believe how many times I looked through his deck. I just went through the whole deck. And then I went through the whole deck, and then I went through the whole deck again 4 or 5 times because I was counting converted mana cost for Tasha's.
Yeah.
And the problem was that I had 2 surgical extractions in hand and wanted to remove CMC, but he had 1 Stoneforge and he had all 3 Stoneforges in the graveyard, so I could only get 2 there. I ended up surgicaling Thoughtseize as the highest CMC card I could get because I assumed there'd be 3 more. So so I was just trying to surgical out CMC and set
Sure,
up the
sure.
Tasha's
Yeah,
kill.
yeah.
Because I kept kind of a slow hand, and because I was on the play, it was a this hand is going to mill you and kill you was the idea, and I was a card short, and uh let me know if this rings true. I don't know. It's just a hard situation to describe,
Yeah.
because he ended up having like when I looked at his deck, he ended up having 24 CMC, and I could only remove 2, and then I Tasha's him, and he died with 1 card, and it could have been worse because the 2-mana card was on the bottom. So all of that time I spent was really for nothing. But if I had if I had Tasha's and then waited to his turn to surgical to make him draw versus his Esper Sentinel, which also complicated things. Because Esper
Oh, yeah.
Sentinel requires the draw, so the Tasha's made
Oh,
him do the first draw on his turn, and then I guess rather the surgical. I think the surgical did the first draw because I obviously didn't pay.
that's
I wanted him
wild,
to draw a
man.
card.
Sounds
Yeah.
very, very
Um,
complicated, very interesting.
Good. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time on it, and I couldn't figure out a kill. And I this so this so this is a line I was thinking about that is ridiculous to do in paper and probably you could never do because of how long it would take. But what if so let's say I surgical because I had 2 surgical. So I do the first surgical.
So you're going to use the first surgical to figure out what is in your opponent's deck to figure out the second surgical?
Right. So like I
Yep.
do that. I record the entire deck,
Yep.
and then I Tasha's him, eliminate all the cards, like determine the remaining cards, and then in his upkeep, if I was lucky enough to have one of the cards, because the Tasha's cards are exiled, so it has to be whatever is left in his deck has to be something that's in the 14 or 15 cards in his graveyard. I go to his turn, and then I surgical, and then if I'm able, then I look through the Tasha's exile pile, and I look through the deck pile, and I determine the last 2 or 3 cards. I guess it has to be 2. And then I surgical what he has remaining in his deck. Esper Sentinel triggers, draws. It has to draw. I have a 50-50 shot. Esper Sentinel draws the other card,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then I surgical the last card that I know, and then he dies. That was
Interesting.
that line would take like 15 minutes to pull off. It would probably take 10. I don't know. It would take way too long.
I think if you ever had to get to that point, you can't really do it the way you want to do it, but there's a way you can shorthand it potentially, marking off the CMC and the copies, and you'll have to just memorize what they are. So you go like 2-1, 3-1, and and then go to 2-2, 2-2, 1-3, whatever the case would be. So you memorize the CMCs, and hopefully that helps you memorize the copies,
Yeah.
and then work off of that.
It's a position where you better hope you're good at like counting cards in blackjack because it sounds
Yeah.
like a very similar situation where you have to like you have to think kind of quickly about it and be able to like just kind of
Well,
memorize those cards,
have
but I
it.
mean, you do. I mean, you do have a fair amount of time to make decisions like this. Obviously, not 15 minutes long, but
Yeah,
I mean,
probably spent 5 minutes when I watched the video, and
sure.
maybe it was like 2 or 3.
Well, it
was
sounds
for-
like it's. I mean, it
felt
sounds like you had
forever.
multiple actions and you were thinking very deeply, and it was literally the last turn of the game. So, I mean, as long as you're not gonna, as long as it's not stalling or slow play or whatever, then it's fine. And it sounds like it was mostly fine in this instance to me, especially because the match was going to end. Like, I don't really understand the slow play calls all that much when it's literally like on a final like a game deciding turn like that. Like, I mean, if we're not holding up the tournament and you're not like, as long as you're within reason, like obviously we talked about 15 minutes would be ridiculous, but I mean,
My opponent did at SCG. I had an opponent that did take 10 minutes on a single action.
that is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. Anyway,
Allowed to be-
yeah, what are you gonna do? I guess call a judge. I don't know what else you can do, but yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you had a very, very complex, very mathematically based decision, and it was incredibly complicated, and you were thinking about it. I mean, that's the kind of player you are. You think about your stuff, which is
That's why I like Mill. I think there's like I don't know, maybe it has a reputation as being like I don't know, easy or it's just like burn. I actually think the opposite. I think it has incredible depth for thinking through lines and how not to lose the game and like what to play around and when. Because like I actually play the deck very conservatively when I know when there's a chance of an endurance or an emrakul. Like I hold like my mill spells in hand. Like they can fetch on turn one, and I will not cast my archive traps unless I have like a specific reason to do so. Like having a Visions of Beyond and trying to get lucky. Because sometimes you do want to if they only have one Emrakul, maybe if you have two archive traps and like a Visions of Beyond, you do want to try and mill the 26 and
Sure.
like take the chance that you don't hit it there so you can get your draw 3 in to look for like your surgical extraction or something. Because I had a game where I probably put half their deck into their graveyard, waiting for the Emrakul, and then I surgicaled it, and they put everything else back, and then I just milled them all out again, right? So, like,
That's awesome.
the game, like those games happen, right? And you need to be prepared to win these long games with the Visions of Beyond and the end of the story, which I think. So I'm on 3 Visions, 1 End of the Story, and I think that end of the story might just be a meme. I think I probably should just play 4 Visions. I'm not sure. It's like
I never liked the Visions. I mean, I never liked Into the Story, to be honest with you. So
It's a lot of
I'm
mana.
not sure.
It's a lot of mana for Modern. 4 mana is still a lot of mana. Like, it was really nuts in Standard, but that's a very different animal. Very different animal.
The thinking is that like in draws that don't have enough mill, you can still like kind of get there off of like one cycle plus maybe they cracked a fetch and played a spell like push to grab, and then you can like if you are that's the thinking I think. And I don't know, I've been on it for a little while and it kept resolving and it kept drawing me a lot of cards that mattered, and I didn't die with it in hand very often, so I guess I had a decent impression of the card, so I played it. But I'm thinking now that maybe just might be kind of ridiculous. I will also say, Dwayne, that the Center of the Sea, the colorless land that colorless being the real problem, that draws it makes each player draw a card. I have won a match of Magic, not at FNM level, off of the trigger when they tried to put their deck back with whatever the artifact is.
Sure.
Elixir of
I
Immortality.
knew there was a risk to the card, but I knew that it also had a lot of benefits, and that being one of them as well.
So it lost me my winning in.
Really?
Because I decided to keep. I maybe I should have just mulliganed. I was against the black-red discard deck with like Torox and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was on the play because I'd lost the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't feel like I had field, swamp, and the Center of the Sea, and like I had the mill spell that cycles, and like another mill spell and like a fatal push or something like that, and it sounds like another random card to 7, and I just didn't feel like I could mulligan on the play against that deck because it had so much discard.
Yeah, dude, it's very tough to mulligan against those decks, especially like you said on the play. You're down a lot at that point.
Yeah,
it's very dangerous.
I found that the mill deck is quite bad when it mulligans. So I'm thinking that like just the 5 colorless sources is just too many. Because mulliganing is so poor. I think I think maybe I should have like sent that hand back and looked for, I don't know, like the nuts like double trap plus Visions or something, but I ended up keeping it because I knew that I could on turn 3 I could get blue, and it was also a pretty high chance that blue comes off the top on turn 2.
Yeah.
But if it had been Misty Rainforest or not, it would be a fetch land if it wasn't the Center of the Sea. But,
yeah.
I don't take it for what it is. I did think about that. I was like, this is the last time this card is getting played by me, I think.
Yep.
I totally get that.
Yep. Winning at an FNM off it is a lot less sweet than winning a winning in with just a fetch land in your deck at a real event, for sure.
I will say of the Luris decks, I think the black-red deck is with Torok is the kind of the worst one because they have they have so many ways to make you discard. If Torok ever comes down for 4, that's a real problem. It's just a big threat too.
Yep.
It gets a +1/+1 counters when you cycle Tasha's. Like it's
Fraying Sanity, right? When you cycle Fraying Sanity.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
Not Tasha.
okay,
It's
yep.
it's actually fractured sanity.
Fractured
The frank
sanity.
sanity is
Frank Sanity is the
Frank Sanity
3-mana
is
enchantment, isn't it? That does that
enchantment,
stuff.
right?
Yeah,
Like, they
yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
make it
yeah.
confusing. They wanted to make it confusing for us.
They did. They sure did.
You just run out of names.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh.
All right. Cool, man. So for anybody listening here that might want to play some mill and you're interested in Dan's list, don't play that colorless land, I guess. It sucks.
Yeah, I'm off it.
Too greedy. Too
Card's
greedy.
bad. Uh-huh.
Okay, so you said you had a winning in. You didn't win your winning in. And then you play in the final round, and you think there is maybe still a chance for top 8, or did you know you were dead for top 8 before you even played the round?
Oh, we knew we were dead. It was a
Okay.
clean split. Everyone above me was able to draw, and then
Okay.
my opponent got to sit at the last table, and I got ninth place. So
Still,
my last round was the fastest and easiest by a long shot. It was just the control deck with no Emrakul. As soon as you archive trap and see Rest in Peace out of the in the milled cards out of the blue white control deck, I think it's safe to say they don't have the Emrakul, and you can just go all out and unmilling them.
makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense.
Although I don't know, maybe if they're playing mind games on you, just bring in a Rest in Peace to try and make you think they don't have it.
Excuse me. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. I
think about mill way too much. I think about mill way too much. One time I was thinking about what if if the control deck did have the Emrakul, they let's say they won the first game, and then in the second game they just don't bring it in, and then when I surgical something in their deck to check if they have the Emrakul, and I don't see it, I'll just cut all my graveyard hate for game 3, and then they can bring it in.
I just mind game you.
Yeah,
play the games.
I'm sure it'll never happen, but
yeah, probably not. But there could be some very high level players that would try something like that. I think that is very, very deep thinking that most players aren't doing stuff like that. And I don't even know if it's correct. It's a very interesting thing to think about. But
it might be.
Yeah, no, I just kind of said it to say just to illustrate how many different things there are to think about with surgical extraction in the mill deck. I just think that there's so many different things to consider, and I don't know, it's interesting to me.
That makes sense. So. All right, so you end up winning your last round. You get 9th place, which is good for how many NRG points was that good for?
It's 8.
8 NRG points. And you had just gotten second at the last event, and now you are second on the leaderboard currently. So you've got a lot riding on the Milwaukee event, right?
Well, that's interesting. I wanted to do the math to see if I could actually skip it.
Dude, are you kidding me? Go to the event, man. What are you doing? What do you have to get to qualify?
You have to be top 7 for the leaderboard.
Top 7. So Will's already in. So I'm in first place as is. The guy under me is going to qualify from what's his name? I should know his name.
The guy who won it again, right? Mr. Elementals.
Again, right?
Yeah.
So he'll qualify through the 3 players who go off the 2021 leaderboard, and then there's 7 slots from the overall leaderboard that are filled in after the fact. Mm-hmm. They pick the 3, and then they pick the 7 second.
Okay.
So the order is in my benefit. So I'm in first, and I have an advantage around what I don't know what I have after. It's like
Will being so far ahead of everyone else and already being queued.
Right. Because Will's already queued from the two people they gave qualifications just for the 2020 leader. So they qualified people from just 2021, from 2020, which is Will and I think Jack something, and then the combined takes 7. Yeah. So the guy above me is already qualified. The guy below me will qualify to the other channel, and then I have like a 15-point advantage on everyone else. So the question is what if a lot of people...
What if a lot of things go wrong, basically?
What if a lot of things go wrong? And I I don't really know how to do the math on that. So if anybody knows the math, wants to give me the percentage chance, feel free. But Steven wants me to go, so maybe you
I mean,
aren't
I
going to
feel
give me
like
the
you just
math.
should, man. I mean, it seems silly not to. When you're in this good of a position, why squander any points, right? I mean, it just seems silly. I'm already annoyed
Right.
that I didn't go to the first one that you got second at. Like that, pretty much at this point, like I pretty much have to just like spike both to have any hope of any sort of NRG anything in
Mhm.
Milwaukee, which is fairly unlikely because I don't play that much Legacy. But I'm gonna try my best to learn one of those decks and just hope that being a fairly competent Magic player in general will help me out and work to my benefit. But yeah, I mean,
You're
just
talking,
like
Yeah.
what was that doing?
you're talking about 16. You're talking about 16 people competing for 10K, man. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
really good money.
yeah.
I know. I think that like my gut is telling me that there's no way I get kicked out. But maybe like
Dude,
I'm knock
just
on
just
wood
just go,
here.
man.
Like,
Just go to the event. Just play the event. Don't, dude. If you didn't
all
make
right.
the event, I would be a little annoyed with you, man. I'm not gonna lie. If you didn't go and then you
I'll
missed,
take my
I'd be like,
guaranteed. Like, what are the what are like what's the percentage chance of how many points I get? Like, I'll probably end up getting like
If you
4 to
perform
8
just
points.
as well
Like,
as you did, you're gonna get like 4 to 8 points
I have to
again.
play the legacy tournament. Okay, so
who
here's the thing.
cares? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with playing some Legacy? There's nothing wrong with playing Legacy. Fine, just don't play Legacy and play Modern again. Whatever, but at least play one of the events.
You should at
Modern's
least
on
want
Sunday.
You should at
Okay?
least
I
do
don't.
the events. If you're not comfortable with Legacy, we're more than happy to playtest you, and I'll hand you a stupid combo deck. I just looked at Oops All Spells. Apparently, I'm like $50 or $60 off of owning the deck. So
Yeah, that deck it did just win, didn't it?
it did just win, and it's very good. And you can just be handed a combo deck that you can playtest and get ready for.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Uh,
Also, man, I mean,
okay,
it's an
guys are
opportunity.
convincing
It's
me.
an big opportunity for the team. Is you being in that? So please don't squander it by just shrugging your shoulders and not going to an event, man. That's really
Like,
poor. I'm not even lying when I say this. Like, had I beaten you, I was definitely considering just conceding to you anyway because I know what a good chance you have of representing us in that event, and I want to see you do well. And I think Andrew has a shot still too, doesn't he? Technically.
Andrew does have a shot, and we just talked about him with the same conversation of he's still in the running because of how many people are already qualified. He's in like
hmm,
16th place right now. If he does well at both events, once again, he will queue.
Also, Dewey, we
hmm,
need to get this man a shirt. This man doesn't have a
I
shirt.
do.
He
Oh
needs
yeah,
a shirt. He
I'm
needs a
sorry,
Swish
I'm not
shirt.
active enough.
People don't
I'm
even
not
know
active enough in
Dan
the
Wharton is
Discord.
on Team Swish, and he keeps doing well.
if you
Now
if
we're
you
gonna give him a shirt, and he's
I'll
gonna
play your
I'm
scrub
squandering
or
our
something.
clout.
I don't know, but this is.
hey, if you queue for the championship by going to the event, I'll get you a jacket.
You better. That's right. You give him a jacket and then put like a gold and put like I don't know. He needs something special on it too
Yeah,
for repping the team in a big series like that would be really cool.
and look,
Yeah,
Zach Malone, you've
whatever you
got
guys want, man.
if you want to play Death and Taxes.
Awesome. Yeah,
What?
Zach's over here being a champion. He also said he could loan me a tabernacle, so I guess I'm gonna test the lands deck as well.
No
Um,
kidding.
so
But you should go because it's going to solidify you in the tournament. I think that's a big deal, and it's going to be a great opportunity for you.
yeah, and Nate and I are like 100% going already anyway. So you have
Okay,
people you
I
can go
actually
with.
didn't know if anyone was going.
Oh,
or
I'm
not.
going for sure. I didn't even want to. I didn't want to miss the first one. The only reason I did was because of the COVID issue. But
Yeah.
there wasn't really much I could do about that crap. But I didn't want to miss any of them. I wanted to play in all of them. It really sucked to not go to the first one. So I'm certainly not gonna not go play. Legacy obviously isn't my cup of tea necessarily, but I think I'll be able to do okay. And if I play D&T, D&T is very much my cup of tea, and I understand how to play D&T decks. Maybe not like as well in Legacy as in Modern, but I kind of get the gist of how to kind of go about those decks. So it's possible I end up playing one of those as well. But right now I'm kind of leaning towards Delver. It's just hard. It's really hard for me to justify not playing that deck, right? Like everyone's gunning for that deck, and it just continues to win all the time. And typically, especially the last few years, when I just play the good deck, I've had very solid results. Like the first Invitational top 8, I literally just picked up the Urza Oko deck, said screw it, hadn't played any games with the deck or matches at all, and just steamrolled Modern, just 8-0'd Modern with this just like completely broken deck. I mean, sometimes you just got to play the broken deck, man. And that's something I didn't do nearly enough of, like in my early stages of my Magic career. But at this point, I'm fine with just doing the broken thing, especially when it doesn't involve, like, sometimes I'll avoid a deck like on Arena. I didn't play the Wilderness Reclamation deck because I was worried about clicking through things on Arena. I was worried about the interface and not hitting full control at right times and stuff like that. So that was literally the only reason I didn't play that deck and just like stuck with red-black when I was grinding like PTQs and stuff. And I still had like okay results with black-red, but obviously I didn't win a PTQ, so it wasn't good enough. And I should have just been playing the Reclamation deck then too. Larry and I have talked about that a lot. We both should have just been playing that deck. It was really stupid not to. The deck was just crazy. But anyway, I think it's fairly likely that I will be playing Delver. But I will play around with the D&T deck and the lands deck too. What concerns me about D&T is Larry tested that deck pretty well, and I think he played the deck solidly. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't like the best D&T pilot in the room or whatever, but I think he was pretty strong. And we only went 2-2 against Delver, which is supposed to be like that's the reason you play D&T, right? Is to beat Delver. And yeah, they like top deck Meltdown a couple times or whatever, but the reality is they play Meltdown. They play a bunch of cantrips and ways to find Meltdown. And if they find that card, or if they have a Torpor Orb when your hand is just very weak to Torpor Orb, like you're in some trouble, you know. Or if you don't draw the Rest in Peace in your 80 card deck, you know, all the matches I watched Larry play, he had the Rest in Peace, but like it's a 2 of in an 80 card deck. You're not going to have that on turn 2 really all that often. I would say you're probably only going to have it like 25% of the time tops. That might be an overestimation.
I would say that.
Yeah, I would agree. It probably is an overestimation. And I don't know, man. I'm just like, he had Rip, and he had Rip in like every match against Delver, and he only won 50% of them. That scares me a lot. That really scares me a ton, because it's supposed to be a good matchup, and we're only getting 50% of them. I don't know. I feel like Delver is just like absurd. Every deck that I watch people play that is supposed to be good against Delver just still seems to lose to Delver. The only person who's given me convincing numbers was Adam Washburn on this Lands deck, and he said he was 6-0 against Delver at this tournament. And I believe him. Lands is typically also supposed to be good against Delver, but then he also just did this other stuff that made his deck even better against Delver, with like the Endurances, the Spheres, the main deck Spheres that make all spells cost 1 more or whatever. Sphere of Resistance, I think it is. Yeah, main deck 3 Sphere of Resistance. So I'm kind of interested in that deck, because those are convincing numbers. 6-0, like I can get behind that against Delver, but 2-2 is not convincing, nor is it good. If you're only 50% against the best deck, that is not a good deck. That is not a deck you should play, because it means you're probably going to lose half the time you run into it. And if you're going to run into it like 4 times an event, you can already chalk up 2 losses if you're going to be 50-50 against it, which is that's not a deck you can play. Now, I'm sure it is a little better than 50-50 against Delver. Most people seem to think it's favored against Delver, so I'm sure that's coming from some, you know, some common knowledge or whatever. But from the matches I have seen, the matchup feels very close, and I don't want to be very close with Delver. I want to beat it convincingly, or I want to play it, and that's pretty much where I'm at with my Legacy decision.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even my deck right now, I'm on the 8-cast deck, and it's a good matchup. It's supposed to be a good matchup, but they have 1 card, and if they draw it, I just lose if I don't have the ability to counter it. And if we get into a counter war and I lose that counter war as well,
you lose.
Then the game's just 100% over.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's just what Delver does, right? Like, Delver just is insanely good. Like, the deck is just ridiculous. It is so broken. It is insane.
This is how little I know about Legacy. I don't even. What's the one card? I don't even know what the one card is.
Meltdown. Meltdown. It's
Meltdown.
it's a red X, I believe, and it destroys all artifacts CMC X or less, and then they can't be regenerated, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know about the regeneration, but it does make it blow up. And the problem is with 8-cast, they can usually do it for 1.
Okay, they can be
And a white
regenerated.
sideboard?
They can be regenerated. It just came up in chat there.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know where
It's
I got that from, but sorry, everybody, I was wrong about what it does.
You're thinking Shatterstorm, which says.
Does that one say they can't? Okay, that must be why
that's a card I've cast many a time against
Sure.
Andrew Woltice's Affinity deck.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Well, now you can cast Meltdown.
Meltdown, okay.
In Legacy, at least. I guess, yeah, you can't Meltdown in Modern, I don't think. But
otherwise, we'd be playing in other decks with
yeah.
without.
Oh, yeah. I bet we would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but you have options, so you should go.
yes, you should absolutely go. Just, yeah, you should go. Nate and I are going. It sounds like Zach can hook us up with Legacy decks. Nate has 3 Legacy decks. We're going to have Legacy decks, man, so you should just come. We can all hang out again, have a good weekend. You can get the points.
I'm still recovering from yesterday, okay? Like, I had such a bad day at work. I was like, and we got home early. I took 9th. I got placed in first in my book.
Yeah, like we did.
I got home at 12:30, and I was still tired the next day.
Too.
If I had gone to the finals, it would have been 4 a.m.
Well, bummer, dude. Are you really gonna be sad if you make it to the finals of another event? Are you crying about going to the finals and being tired?
Be sad on Monday.
Dude, we'll let you sleep in the car, man. Bring a pillow or something. Right. I don't know. You won't have to drive. I think Nate's driving, so.
All right. Sounds good.
It does obviously come down to it, but at the very least, you should go to the Legacy event on Saturday and then come home on Sunday. Then, if you do well on Saturday, you're locked.
Then you're locked. Then you don't even have to play on Sunday if you don't want to.
Yeah. My argument is that I'm actually locked now, though.
I understand, but are you sure? The question is, are you certain that you are locked?
I'll agree with you on this. You believe you are locked.
Yeah.
See, my counter to your logic there is we'll just go on Saturday. Well, at that point, I should just stay for Sunday, right? Because I think if I did go,
once you're there,
yeah, there's zero chance I go for just Saturday, right? Who's gonna take me back, right? And I would be skipping Modern, which I think I have a better win percentage or a better chance at doing well, at least. Just because I know more about Modern and I have more reps. I'm big into reps. That's why I'm scared of Legacy, because I don't have reps. And I just think that especially it impacts your sideboard decision, your decisions, your mulligan decisions. Reps are so important. And Steven, you were talking a minute ago about how you should just play the best deck. And I guess I'm maybe not on that level yet where I just feel like I can pick up whatever the best deck is and make all the best mulligan decisions, all the best sideboard decisions.
But you're not just picking up deck, right? You're at the point now, all of us are, that when we're thinking about a tournament, you're playtesting the deck, right? We're online, we're jamming games, we're watching other people jam the games, we're talking with each other about the best choices, the options that are available, and that's going to help you get prepared for it. I mean, when I was playtesting all the stuff I was in preparation for the weekend, I was talking with teammates, talking about plays, talking about options, jamming a bunch of games, and you get ready for it.
Well, and here's the thing too, Dan. I don't think I'm not gonna play it perfectly. I don't play any deck perfectly. No one really does. I mean, it's just, you're gonna make some amount of mistakes. But when you play a deck that is that good, you can make some mistakes, and it just is. There are plenty of times where it will not matter. That was the case with the Urza deck too. I played well. I definitely played well, but I made multiple mistakes, even on camera. Just on my feature matches, I forgot to do something with a Karn one turn. I another game forgot to do something with an Oko because I was very in-depthly thinking about all of the other things that were going on. And it just didn't matter. That's just how good that stinking deck was. And I feel like it's kind of that way with Delver too. Your deck is just so broken that you can make some of those smallish errors, and there's not nearly as much of a punish. Say with a deck like D&T. D&T is this way in Modern too. You better not make any mistakes ever, because your card quality is really very low. Your cards are not very good. I mean, that is the truth about D&T. Your cards kind of suck, if we're being honest. Your card, like, you're playing 2-mana 2/1s and 1-mana 1. Like, you're playing a lot of just very not, like, Flicker Wisp is not individually powerful. You need to, like, go with other things. Like, the cards themselves are really not that strong. But when you play them very well and sequence all the things right and stuff like that, it can become problematic for your opponents. But D&T is like always a deck that you just cannot make mistakes with, and you have to do very smart things with your lands too. That's the really tough thing about D&T is you have to. It's not always right to wasteland. It's not always right to port. Like, you have to figure out when the right times to port and wasteland are versus when it is correct to get your cards into play. That was always the hardest thing about, like, Modern Death and Taxes as well, is like it was not always right to Ghost Quarter Arbiter. In fact, it was oftentimes not correct to Ghost Quarter Arbiter, even if you had the Ghost Quarter Arbiter, because you needed to get, like, I was playing Eldrazi Displacer. You needed to, like, get your Displacer down. You needed to conserve the colorless source from the Ghost Quarter to be able to blink things. But anyway, all this to say, I think Delver is just, like, really good, and I'm confident that if I pick it up, I will still play it at a fairly optimal level, even on not that long of testing. Like, I'm still confident in myself as a player to think through my lines and make mostly good decisions. And at this point, we've all been kind of playing Legacy. We've been seeing Legacy for the past, like, month and a half. So I'm kind of learning how the format is and what cards do and all that through all that, you know.
Yeah.
A good example of, like, hopping into Legacy, like, Zach Allen, man, is a great example of someone who, like, he just decided that he was going to start playing Legacy, and literally the dude was, like, top eighting online events within, like, a few weeks. Like, he just decided that he wanted to get good at Legacy because he was confident there were not that many good Legacy players in Michigan, and just wanted to hop in and get good at it. And if you're willing to, like, dedicate the time and hop in and play some good decks and learn formats, it really, if you're a solid player, like, it doesn't take that long to get good at new formats, just because it's still Magic. And if you know what the format does, you kind of just, like, I don't know, you have the experience in other formats, and it helps you in other formats as well. Is kind of my opinion.
For you in future tournaments, right? Like, you become a stronger Legacy player now, you're going to be that much stronger next year, and it's going to make you that much stronger for the next circuit.
Yep.
So
I get that. I will say the thing, I guess, counter this. So what concerns me about playing the best deck when you have 2 weeks to prepare is I just assume that I'm just going to lose all of the mirrors to the people who have been playing Delver since the beginning of time, and look, and we're there for every transition to every new card, and they built up.
Dude, just go seriously, man. Just literally go read an article about how the mirror works, because that's really that would help you a ton. Like, as long as and then you know what your opponent is thinking too, so you know what your opponent is going to do against you, and you can maybe even counteract. You can come up with different plans for how, if they read. I don't know. I think you're overthinking it slightly, because I think you are a very strong player, and you probably, that's probably not the best mindset to have personally. Like, I think you would do just fine if you picked up Delver and tested it for a week and decided to play Delver. I really do. Maybe a little longer than a week would be needed, but because you don't know the format of Legacy that much yet. But the better you get at Legacy as a whole, the more likely it is you could pick up any deck and have a good amount of success with it. Obviously, combo decks are a little different. Those ones, they really need to know exactly what their deck is trying to do. But
the other thing is, you're not looking to spike the tournament, in all honesty.
Yeah, you just want to get some points. You just want to get some points. You're going to, like, 5-4, 6-3, right? I mean,
you're looking for a top 16, top 32 to snag some points and be happy. That's it.
Yeah.
You're just trying to assure your tournament, and that's what you're doing. So
I gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean, 2 points. I think that even if I get 2 points across the weekend, I still think I'll be in. But Not
Two
gonna lie.
entries.
Well, you might as well go
You
get the
could
2
have
points. You may as well go get
Yeah,
the
no,
2
it-
points. They're on the table.
That's
Just
right.
go take them. There's no
Mhm.
reason to leave them behind because you would regret it immensely if you somehow didn't make it in, right? I mean, you'd feel
Oh, yeah.
incredibly foolish, and I would be ashamed of you, Dan Wharton. Ashamed.
They'd
Shame.
right off the team real
Oh,
quick.
wow.
I'm just kidding. And no, I'll plan on going and yeah, I'm down to test some legacy. I think that's where the most work is required in my opinion because I'm just, as I'm sure you've picked up, I'm a big believer in experience. I put a lot of weight on it. I guess I put a lot of my past successes I attribute to experience and having lots and lots of reps. So I think that mindset came out in just my opinions about why I thought it was so important. But maybe you're also, you think about Magic more than me, I'm sure. And I think about it a lot, but
Sure.
I'm
We
sure
probably think
you-
about it a similar amount. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I when I lay my head on my pillow at night,
Yep.
Magic,
Yeah, I hear you, dude.
Problem.
For sure. For sure. Well, all right, Dan. The interview at this point. We've gone an hour and 15 minutes. So I think the interview segment for this evening. I think we've covered it well. We've gone into a lot of detail about both this past weekend, a little bit of details about your prior event, and then our plans for the future here. So yeah, Dan Wharton, confirmed mill guy for the time being. Mill guy of Team Swish. Here he is. So if you hate Mill, well, that sucks for you. You probably don't want to play against Dan because he's going to mill you out. But
I did have some opponents who were pretty.
oh,
upset
I
on
know you did. And you know what? People hate to lose to certain stuff, for whatever reason more than others. I personally always hate to lose. I don't care what it's to.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm always annoyed when I lose a game of Magic. I don't really care. That's being a little aggressive. I'm not always, like I said, some games you cannot win, but it sucks to lose. Losing sucks. Like, we're competitors, we want to win when we go to these tournaments. So I'm never happy when I lose. But there's really no deck I'm much more frustrated to lose to than the next. Like, there are plenty of, just losing is a crappy thing. But yeah, Dan Wharton, confirmed mill guy. Thank you for joining us today, man. And yeah, are you gonna play at the store championship this Sunday at Galactic?
Yeah, that's the thing. I've got Magic this weekend, and then
Okay.
Magic the following
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah. All right, man. So good luck
Nice.
to you this weekend. Hopefully we both. Excuse me. Dang. Hopefully we both do well. And thank you so much for being on the cast with us this evening. And yeah, next week we're actually going to have your Hammer opponent on the cast for a special guest.
Heck yeah.
So that's gonna be cool. We got Will coming on, Will Kruger. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. Can't wait to do that. But
Hey,
yeah,
he's a good player, man. He has me 0-2 right now, and I
fair.
thought I was gonna even the.
thought you were gonna even it up, and then he
Nah,
re-duked
yeah.
you, dude. He re-duked you. Re-Duke used to go
he
to
had
60.
the double hammer. That was the thing. Oh man, I would have had another turn.
Re-Duke used to
He
go
had
to
the
like
double
62 or 63 cards and Jund all the time when he played against Mill in leagues. It was so interesting. But I guess maybe one or two cards doesn't change your numbers enough for like your deck's consistency, and it does hurt the Mill deck enough, is I guess the argument. And I can almost guarantee you that Reed Duke or one of those Channel Fireball guys probably did the math on that somewhere at some point, and that's why they do it. So there must be some
Especially
merit
good
to
if
it.
you're bringing in CMC. If you're bringing in CMC, it's especially good.
Exactly.
So
Now that Tasha's
you brought in
exists.
Sanctifier, which increased the deck by
Yep. Yep.
4 CMC. Pretty
Yep.
important. So
It's pretty cool.
all right. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it was fun talking with you guys, and
You too, man.
I'll see y'all later.
Sounds good, dude.
All right. Peace out.
See you, man. Alrighty. So everybody, that was our fellow teammate Dan Wharton. We got to get that man some gear, do we? We got to get that man some gear. I was talking to him this weekend. I'm like, dude, how are you going to come to these events? How are you going to be literally first on the leaderboard for 2021 or whatever, and we don't have you wearing a shirt? Unbelievable. No jacket, no shirt. People don't even know he's on Team Swish.
Yeah, that's no good. We'll get him set up here.
Get this man some gear. We got to get him some gear. So yeah, that was Dan's recap of the weekend. So now we're gonna try and keep this a little more brief. We're not trying to go to 2 hours tonight. But so Dewey, how did your weekend go? Because you played as well in both these events. So how did this weekend go for you?
My personal record with the deck went quite well, in my opinion.
Okay.
I had.
And you played
I was-
Amulet, correct?
I was Amulet. I'm really hype on Amulet, of course. I think the deck is just completely busted. I went. So and specifically, I'm on the Amulet build with the Cultivator Colossus.
Yeah.
Which I think is a huge deal, of course. And so that card, initial testing, constant 4/1s, sprinkled in with some 3/2s. All of it's just fantastic. It's everything you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
But in the tournament itself, real quick on my team, it was myself. I was in the a modern seat. We had Andrew in the legacy seat. He was on 8 casts, and then Jeff was on the limited seat. We got a decent pool. We built through various versions of it, and then settled on black-white, and just went leaning on our bombs.
Soren and Toxrill were your bombs, right? Soren and Toxrill? Yeah.
And then we had a little bit of synergy with Kaya.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, with Kaya and Soren making multiple 2/3s.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting synergy for sure. And Soren helps defend the Kaya. And I've said a few times, I don't think Kaya is particularly good, but if you can get to the ultimate, it's stupid. If you can ultimate that card, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
so the question is, can you defend it?
Yep, exactly. So Jeff's losses were unfortunate. They were the classic losses of in this format, which is you did everything you were supposed to, you've got it locked up, you're gonna win here in like 2 turns, and your opponent casts a demon.
Yeah.
I believe 2 of his losses alone were on the demon, which is real annoying, of course.
Yep, classic. And then he also lost in the last round to Raja, right?
Yep. And that was getting flooded in one game and then getting mulled and then land screwed in the other one. So
yeah,
not
that's
much. Yeah, not much you can do there, but not mad about it. Myself, I went 6-1 on day 1, and then I went, and with that was just a lot of great games. I mean, it's everything I'm looking for, where I'm just like doing those stupid shenanigans, drawing super hot. In day 2, I started off with a loss that was pretty miserable. I only want to highlight it because of how miserable it was.
It's funny.
It was a loss against Grixis Shadow, and I had 4 turns to draw any spell at all. And just not a land, any spell.
Any spell.
Any spell. Like, I'm happy with any spell. We don't get there. And then after that, I just go on a good win streak. Because I beat him in the first game, I lose in the second one, and then in the third one, I feel confident that I'm going to get there, and I just don't, because that's just what happens sometimes.
Yep.
And in the then I go on a 6-game win streak. So the deck is just firing on all cylinders. I get to the last one. It's against Matt Hoey, and he's on Orzhov Hammer. Game 1 was a really tilting loss because game 1. He has me on a slow clock because he has just a hammer and no spear, and so he's just beating in. I'm chumping, and I draw multiple dryads. I have a dryad and a pact in hand, so if I draw, and I have 5 lands in play already with 2 Valakuts, or 1 Valakut. Yeah, 1 Valakut, and I can just start shooting everything that he has, and then I can pact for the Titan to get more Valakuts, and his board's just completely wiped, right?
Sure.
I draw, pact. All right, I can chump again. That's fine. Pass. Draw, pact. Okay, this is getting ridiculous here. Draw again. It's Dryad. So I've ran out the other Dryads. I have like 3 Dryads, 3 packs in my hand, and I still have an outer here. He swings at me with his whole board. I can double block the one that's on hammer because it now has a spear, or has a hammer and 1 spear on it, and then I chump the other one. I have 1 Dryad left, so once again, I draw any land. I can start shooting things down. If it's untapped, I get to pack to wipe the board. I win the game.
Sure.
Draw a payoff again, and So it's just that was a tilting loss.
Yeah.
Opposite, obviously, of the first round. And then game 2, he sets it up well where he's supposed to win, and I once again need to just kind of get something else, and I just can't seem to draw the spell, and then he just runs me over with a hammer spear. So
that makes sense. That's unfortunate for sure.
what the deck does. So.
Yep, definitely.
But yeah,
with hammers.
Overall, I think Amulet Titan's still crazy, still really good. And the deck is just like insane right now. It is encountering a lot of hate now, though.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, how was your weekend with everyone?
Yeah. So we got 19th in the team event. Funny enough, our last round didn't get recorded until Sunday. Thankfully, Max was able to fix that for us. So on the initial standings that got posted on Twitter and stuff, we weren't there. And when I saw the standings, I was like, "Where are we? We should be like right around here. Why are we not there?" We just didn't report our last match, so they gave us a draw instead of giving us a win or a loss. And then I, fortunately saw those standings or whatever. I messaged Max. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" Like, and we figured out that is what happened. And then thankfully he was able to adjust that. So we got 19th. We finished 5-2-1, I think. Was it 8 rounds?
It was just 7 rounds.
It was just 7. So we were 4-2-1. I think we were 4-2-1. But we started off 2-0. Larry was doing really good. He beat his first couple Delver opponents, and then in the next round, I believe we played against Allie Warfield's team. My opponent was Piper Powell, who's also doing quite well in the NRG series, I believe. And I don't know him super well, but I kind of know him a little bit through Connor Mullally. But anyway, really strong player. We had a great match. Game 1, I go to 1 life, and I'm on Grixis Death Shadow, and he's on Blue-Red Murktide. And we just have a very, very interesting game of Magic. Really, really good game. I get there, but it's super close. And then game two, I get him. It's another fairly interesting game, but not even close to as interesting as the first. The first game was like very, very good. And then Noah, unfortunately, did not finish his match, and he was almost certainly going to win the game in like 4 turns. He had the artifact that reanimates stuff, the Dollhouse. He had Dollhouse and was just going off with Dollhouse. And if we would have had like 4 more turns, I don't think our opponent would have won that game. So it's unfortunate he didn't concede game 2 a little quicker. We kind of talked about afterwards that he probably should have conceded a little quicker.
I think that's something that not enough limited players did yesterday. On the first day as a whole. I
also would have liked to see him push the tempo even more than he did in game 3. Like when you're playing with that little time, you just need to be like, Link, go. Like obviously, I understand that I'm not the fastest player, so it's like weird for me to. But I can recognize when I need to just play fast, and I can do it. I know I don't do it that often, but when I need to play fast, I play fast. Like I'm capable of it. I don't like doing it obviously because you don't get to like think through things. But sometimes you just have to play fast. Like when I was playing blue-white control in standard. I was playing like mirror matches, and you have to just go like land go very quickly because the matches just went forever, like all the time, because there were really so little win cons. But anyway, that being said, we end up drawing, so we're 2-1, and then we lose. I think our next one. Noah gets double demoned. His opponent has 2 demons in their deck and the hand hate spell to like clear the way for demon. So we brought in like a counter spell package to try and counteract the demons, and our opponent just ripped the counter spells and hand hate spells and things like that out of our hand and just demoned us, and we died. Larry ended up getting top deck meltdown again, and I was going. My opponent and I weren't going to finish our match. But I was almost certainly going to win. I was just dashing Ragavan over and over again into 3 prismatic endings that they couldn't do anything with. And then eventually, on like our last turn before turns were over, I was gonna Croxa twice and Inquisition the ending out of their hands. They were gonna have no hand, and I was gonna have a Croxa, still a Ragavan in my hand. So I was like very, very certainly going to win that game if we had a few more turns, but it didn't end up mattering. And then we stay alive until round 6. We win in round 5, and we play against Zach Allen, Kyle Bogamus, and Raja Suleiman. And unfortunately, I don't know if I don't think any of us were. I can't remember if Noah and Raja finished or what, but they were having an interesting match. Raja's pool, their pool was terrible. They had no rares like at all, but Raja, just being the caliber of player he is, was able to make it work. And obviously their team's very good. But I had a really good mirror match with Kyle. He ended up getting me. He won the die roll, so he had the turn 1 Ragavan. I did not have heat. I also had Ragavan. He did have heat, and then the treasure production ended up being really big for him. I was kind of able to make the game interesting. He top-decked a Drown for the iteration that I had, which was very, very unfortunate. Had I been able to resolve the iteration, I might have had a shot in that game, but the top-deck Drown was pretty brutal. And then he had another pretty good top deck on one of the other turns. But I mean, that's the nature of the matchup. We're both playing a bunch of hand 8 spells, so it kind of comes down to top decks as it is anyway. And then game 2 was awesome. We played like a 35-minute game 2, just very, very patient. Both of us were super patient. He ended up drawing a little better at the end of the game, and he was up a card the whole game because he was on the draw anyway. I was able to. The game was kind of crazy because I hand hate spelled 3 expressive iterations earlier. I think I hand hate spelled 2 of them, and then I bluffed like I had a counter, and I didn't have a counter, but he respected that I could have had a counter, so he didn't play his 3rd one. And then I drew another hand hate spell to rip the 3rd one, and then he drew a 4th one and was able to resolve the 4th one because he was in a position where he just kind of had to. Yeah. And then I was able to resolve like a couple of my iterations, and it was a really, really interesting game. But he ended up getting me at the end. He drew a Nihil Spellbomb before I drew any of my 3 Croxas, which was very unfortunate. He was only on 2 Croxas, and I didn't draw any of my. I brought in all my lanterns against him and never saw a lantern. So his Luris eventually ended up taking over at the very end of the game. I kind of had to use removal on other things, and he was able to run me out of removal, and it was a really interesting game.
Yeah.
But that was my only loss on the day, actually. I technically was 4-1 and 2 didn't finishes, but I'm almost certain I would have won both of my didn't finishes. Like I said, the Dashing Ragavan game, I was so far ahead of that guy. And then game, my other one was against Burn, and my opponent was going to have me at 8, but I was going to have a Resolve Croxa with them at like 15. So they would have had to top deck like a couple Boros Charms on me. Pretty unlikely to lose, but possible. They could have also top decked a Deflecting Palm or something. So I wasn't like 100% to win that game. They could have drawn like a Path too, which would have been really brutal. But I think I would have been 6-1 on Saturday. Right. On day 2, I started to kind of run into the issues that I was having on MTGO with these Thoughtseize decks. Where my deck just kind of the Thoughtseize bug just seemed to be happening to me a little bit.
Yeah.
I played against Belcher, and obviously Belcher's not like a great matchup for Shadow. Obviously, we already talked about what happened against Dan. My iterations were ridiculous. They were certainly better in the rounds after round 1 until this specific match. They were pretty bad again. I think I only cast 1, but it was still like very, very unexciting. But anyway, I Thoughtseize both of my opponent's Char Belchers. He has 2 Belchers in hand. I rip them both, and I have double Drown in the lock in my hand. My opponent has a Manamorphose, and he chooses to not cycle it, which is definitely correct, by the way. My opponent played very well, very, very good piloting of Belcher for my opponent and understanding what cards mattered in the matchup, because he refused to put the 4th card in the graveyard, which did not turn on either of my Drowns for the top deck 3rd Belcher that he drew on me.
Wow.
So he drew a 3rd Belcher and killed me with a Belcher, and I was 1 card count short in his graveyard of being able to counter it. So that's how I lost game 1. Definitely pretty annoyed with him top decking 3 Belchers, or top decking that 3rd Belcher, but it is what it is. I couldn't do anything about it. And then game 2, I keep kind of a sketcher. It's 4 lands, double Darcy, Ragavan.
Okay.
And I keep it because it has a turn 1 Ragavan. It's going to pressure pretty well, and honestly, the matchup, like I said, is just kind of rough. I kind of just need to pray he doesn't have a Fury. It's a hand that can get early pressure, and honestly, I'm fairly happy I kept the hand because my opponent mulliganed to 6 and then white leylined me, leylined of sanctitied me, so hand 8 spells weren't going to do anything anyway, which is what I would have been probably mulliganing to. Naturally, my first draw was Inquisition, and then my next 3 draws were lands, so I drew an Inquisition and then 0 spells. And then my opponent, they didn't have Fury, which was good for me. I was able to get some pressure, but the problem with this Inquisition, for those that don't know, you probably do know this. If you have to target yourself with Inquisition, you have to show your opponent your hand. So even though I had 2 Darcys in play, I couldn't really cast this Inquisition for the Surveils because if I did, I was just letting my opponent know they were clear to just kill me if they had it. So I tried to act like I had Spell Pierce or Mystical Dispute or whatever counterspell may have been on my board, but my opponent wasn't buying it. He just went for it on turn 3 anyway and got me.
Yep.
So that was how I lost that round, and then I was 4-2 at that point, I believe, or maybe I think I was 3-2 at that point. I won a very good match against one of the guys who top 8'd the team event on Hardened Scales in the following round. Very, very close match. Went to game 3. I had some really nutty hands in games 2 and 3 where I went like Fetch Shock, Thought Sees You, Fetch Shock, Thought Sees You, Shadow in both games 2 and 3. And I just took all his creatures and left him with everything else. I just left him with like Ozolith, Hardened Scales, and my plan was just like rip all creatures, hope you don't draw any more creatures, or kill the creature. Hope it's not like a Hangerback Walker type of deal. And it wasn't, and he ended up not drawing creatures and losing both ones to just a really, really stupidly large Shadow. I think in game 3 it was attacking as an 11/11 on turn 4. I put myself to 2 and just 2-turned him with a Death Shadow. And then, so my next round, Larry was pretty convinced that X3 was dead at this point. He was already X3 and already dropped from the tournament. And he was telling me that if I lost again, we were going home. He was very adamant, dude, we're going home. It's snowy in Michigan. We're leaving if you lose again.
Yeah.
So I get paired against Chris from I don't remember his last name, but he plays at Galactic with us, so it was another Grand Rapids meeting. And we have a really good game 1. Yet again, kind of the Thoughtseize bug gets me. He's hellbent, and he just top decks 2 chords in a row, 2 Quarter Callings in a row. The first one endurances my Croxa, which I was heavily relying on the next turn to get the Croxa in play to start to get some pressure. And then the next one got Yawgmoth and just went off and killed me. And then I was pretty annoyed that I had lost this game, and this matchup's pretty tough for me anyway. And I'm kind of thinking that we're going to go home anyway, so I'm definitely, my mind's not 100% in it. And I shuffle my Lurrus into my library like a fool. And naturally, I draw the Lurrus in game 2, and one of the funniest moment of the whole tournament, Raja's sitting right next to me, and he looks over at me, and he just goes, "Is this what I think it is?" He just literally points at it and says, "Is this what I think it is?" and is laughing. And he goes, "Sorry, I don't mean to give away information, but this is hilarious." And I don't even care, obviously, because first of all, I think I'm going home if I lose. Like, I think I'm just done and my day's over. So I'm like, whatever. Like, screw it. I'm tired anyway. Like F it kind of thing. And Raj is my friend. I don't care that he's giving away information. It's irrelevant anyway. I end up I try to fight through this game. I get stuck on 2 lands. I think I draw an iteration that's horrible at one point again when I needed to be good. Classic iteration stuff on Sunday for me. But I end up losing, and I think I'm dead. And as we're literally like about to leave, Chris Darnell is like, dude, X3 cashes this event. What are you doing? Like, you can still get more points too. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then he I hadn't even looked at the tournament structure. I was just kind of listening to what Larry was saying for some reason. Typically not a great plan. Not always the best idea to blindly follow Larry. But so we look at the prize payout or whatever, and Larry's like, okay, if you can still cash, like whatever, but you're driving half the way home, and he never made me drive at all on the way home. So I guess he was just bluffing. I don't know, but
I think
yeah,
he also thought that they were only pricing out to like
yeah, he
top.
did, yeah. He wasn't like, yeah, when he found out I could make money, he was like, whatever. So then we stay for the next 2 rounds. I have a pretty interesting next few rounds. I won't go into huge detail. I had another just abysmally bad iteration in game 1 of my last round where I had 5 lands and 4 fetches in the yard, and I iterationed and saw 3 lands. We also had one of those today when we were testing the deck. Even before hopping into this call, we were testing Shadow, and we literally had a game with the 5 lands, multiple fetches, cast iteration, see 3 lands. It's like, all right, man, whatever. But fortunately, I was still able to win that game 1, and then game 2, my opponent gets me, and game 3 is very, very tight. We both make a couple mistakes. But fortunately, he missed a Chalice trigger. I Chalice checked him and snuck in a Dragon Rage Channeler, which ended up winning me the match. I put him to 1, and then it looked like he stabilized. But because of that Darcy, I was able to dig to Colligon's command and just 2 him in the face.
Nice.
And so I went 6-3, and I got 32nd exactly to break even on cash and get some of those NRG points, which was kind of cool.
Funny story about that. So on day 2, I had some interesting. One game I should point out is the game I had on camera. I was against Abzan Yawgmoth. Game 1, my opponent kept a 1-lander, as people could see, and they ran out their hand. If they could hit a second source, they could like combo out. They were in a position where they were going off, and he was just drawing a ton of cards. He's down to like 6 life, and he plays a land, and he has to make the decision: do I either crack this land to draw an extra card because there's a 1 of Zilliport Cutthroat in my deck, or do I instead not do that, and instead I go for the higher statistical play, which is draw 1 of the 3 Court of Calling in my deck and keep my life as high as possible? Because he doesn't have the ability to generate the mana if he does that. And so he does it, and he draws the 1 off.
He draws the Cutthroat, and it screws him. Yeah. He can't cast it.
Yeah, and then on my turn, I'm able to kill him.
Yep.
Game 2, he gets out a Tocatl Honor Guard.
Yep.
Which makes us ETBs can't remember. There is a turn where I recognize that I can't cast my Titan and get a value off of it, but can I cast my Titan at least and still pay for a pact? So I'm like, I can get the lands and pass. And then for some reason, I think that I can Arbor Arboreal Grazer. And obviously I can't because of the ETB, but we both miss it. And we are like, what's going on? Why are they pausing the game?
Oh.
And they're like, they found out, and then we had the judge call. And it was a situation where we were already both laughing because he had, I think that was a turn that he had courted, and he courted for 2, and he was going for his 2/2, the new Outland Liberator.
Yeah.
And when he went to do that, he realized that he forgot to side it in.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Guys. So we're both like also just joking around now at this point, and it gets to, it passes over, and then we get called for the judge, and they pause us, and then we try to see if we can reverse game state. Decisions were made, unfortunately, and things have passed. We ended up having to decide that we can't, and then I can kill him later on after that as a result. So it was an awkward situation that we had both missed it. But the plus side here is that we both recognize that also I would have just played a land pass and it would have been in the same situation the following turn. So
sure, yeah.
But that was an odd one. I win that. I beat Hammer in the next round. I lose to Matt Hoey in round 3. I mean the winning in for in the second to last round.
Yeah,
because it would have been that clean cut to get in. The part that's funny is in my last round I'm against Blue White Control. I have the worst breakers. period. Like, I had the
Yeah.
worst breaker. I had like 40-some% because my round 1 loss. My opponent went on to just 0-2, or 0-2 or 0-3 drop after that.
Sure thing.
But the reason you got 32nd is because I told my opponent I'm not really interested in drawing. I would rather concede and just split prize, and that's what we ended up doing. But if we would have did what he wanted, which was tie, I would have knocked you out of top 32.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't do that then.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah, that was it was a weird weekend with stuff like that happening because our teams like not now we don't the night Zach Allen's team getting 9th in the team event was really a bummer, but we initially thought that when our record got screwed up that we may have cost them a spot, but fortunately their percentages were off by enough that it probably didn't kill them. But it was still very awkward because that was definitely percentage points they certainly lost.
Right, and our team actually played against them in that last round, and as we've talked about, like Luris against Amulet's actually an awful matchup because of the
dress down specifically. Yeah, the shadow build.
And so I was expecting to lose as much like you did, and they ended up being able to win. And I'm like, weird. But then, Jeff gets rolled, and Andrew has to play against Zach Allen, and Zach draws. He has 1 meltdown in his deck, and he draws it in game 2 and 3 to blow out Andrew, which really sucks. But also at the same time, it's like, well, what can you do at that point?
Yeah, not much. I mean, meltdown, man. I mean, like you were saying, like the decks that are bad against that card are really, really bad against that card, and if you can't counter it, you lose. I mean, it's just kind of how simple it is. If that resolves, you lost the game almost every time. So,
yeah, I thought that was some funny stuff. I'm playing. The last thing I'll say about the tournament for me is on my final round, game 1. I just beat my opponent. Game 2, he gets me. Game 3, I think he recognizes that he has I'm gonna end up winning if it goes long enough at this point.
Sure.
So he's just doing whatever he can not to lose, not win. He's not trying to do anything to put himself in a winning position. He's just trying to make sure the game ends in a draw. And that's where we get to that situation where we talk about it. And I'm like, I have terrible breakers. I'm, would you agree to a prize split? And I'm like, I'll instant concede to you because I'm at 40% and everyone else is 50 plus. So, it didn't matter for me. But he, after we had split prize, he's like, oh yeah, I knew you would win. Like, you were doing value plays, longevity, and you were going to draw one of those 3 Emeralds eventually, and I can't beat it. So I just accepted that I was going to lose the match.
That's funny, man. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I think we've been going for almost 2 hours now. We're gonna cut an end to it here. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Hopefully next week Larry will be back with us, and we'll be doing our normal thing again. Like I said, we've got Will Kruger coming on next week. It's going to be awesome to have him, and it's going to be a good week to do it because it's a week before another, obviously, NRG weekend. So it'll be cool to talk to him about, if he's going to run back Hammer in Modern, what he's doing in Legacy. Get to pick his brain because he is a really awesome player. I would say up and coming, but at this point he's not up and coming anymore. He's just there. He's just there. One of the best players around, man. Super good. From what I can tell, a really nice dude too. I've interacted with him very briefly a few times, but seems like a pretty humble guy. Just a cool guy to interact with from what I can tell. So it'll be really nice having him on. But again, thanks everybody for listening. We're gonna try our best to respect your time here and put an end to this at about an hour, as Larry would say, put a bow on it here with about at about an hour and 50 minutes. So thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you